Did I really just say that? Did I do it again? Is there something I'm missing? Is it all in my head? I've got this feeling like we've been here before. Please tell me you like this. Please give me some more.
Hey guys, and welcome back. Unless this is your first time here, in which case, very confusing that you chose to start here. But the reason I'm saying welcome back is because this is, as you can read from the title, part 2 of my ghost stories. Probably the last part. I don't have enough ghost stories to make another episode out of. I still have a couple that I haven't shared and won't have shared by the time this is over, but not enough to make another episode out of. So this is probably the last one. Unless, maybe I'll just tell them all during this. I don't know. I wrote an outline of, which ones I should tell, because last time I just did it off the dome and there was a lot of, parts, some silent parts that I had to cut out of me being like, what one should I do next? So I have them written down. Maybe I'll just go nuts and tell all of them and make this really long. Probably not. Let's say probably not. So, I am going to tell you some ghost stories today. They are all true. However, you don't have to believe me. That is okay. If you don't believe in ghosts, then I am just telling you some spooky stories. And that's fine. We can leave it there. I don't really care if you believe me or not. They happened to me. So, you weren't there. I sound super defensive, and it's only because I am. But, stupid. Sorry. Anyway, let's get the boring stuff out of the way first. Thank you to Hey Blinken for the intro music. And thank you to everyone who is listening right now. I really enjoy doing this series of my ghost stories. I just enjoy doing spooky stuff. So thanks for listening. And you can join my Patreon or my Discord if you want to. Please like and subscribe and comment. I don't know, man. I am so bad at stuff like this. Isn't this shit supposed to go at the end? Anyways, I don't know. Anyway, let's get into it. So, if you remember from last time, I had a bunch of ghost stories and a bunch of defensiveness. I'm not going to be quite as defensive this time. But you should still listen to part 1 first to kind of get a barometer as to where this is going to go. Because part of this is going to be very hard for you to believe. And this will make more sense once you've finished the video and you know which story I'm talking about. But the very last story is going to be hard to believe. I know, if you listen to part 1 and you didn't have a problem with it and you're thinking to yourself, well, it couldn't be harder to believe than any of the other stuff you said. Well, let's just see how it goes. This is a very vulnerable moment for me, because it was one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me, and no one's ever believed me, even though I have 5 witnesses. So you can just keep your comments to yourself. I'm so nervous about telling it. Oh my god. Okay, but we're gonna start small. We're gonna start with the stuff that isn't quite that scary, and we're going to move into the more intense, scarier stories. Because, I do have a lot of ghost stories that are just kind of whatever. They're just not scary. But they're still interesting stories. So the first one that I'm going to get into is some poltergeists. So if you're in particular scared of poltergeists, I don't know, maybe this will scare you, but I just don't think it was a scary moment at all. So I had a job at one point many years ago. Now it's been many years. God, I'm old. Anyway, I had a job cleaning offices at nights. Once the building had closed, I would go in and, clean different offices. It was all medical offices too. That's not important, but it is part of the story, I guess. So, at one of the offices, there was a poltergeist. And it took me a while to realize it because it's so easy to lie to yourself and say, oh, I must not have put that back or whatever. And it takes a while for it to really sink in and be like, no, I absolutely know I didn't do this. Because even for me, even someone who has this many ghost stories, even the first thing I think of isn't ghost. You know, like, I always look for a logical explanation first. And I'm pretty good. I know this will shock you guys, but I'm actually pretty good at gaslighting myself too. So there was a lot of, I don't think that's really what's going on. But eventually it did sink in. And I don't remember the moment that it did, because I didn't find it terribly remarkable. Again, you guys have listened. I mean, this story takes place after most of the other ones. So I had already, at this point in my life, I had already met Leo. So me being like, oh wow, there's a mild poltergeist here, it didn't really rock me back. I was like, oh, okay. I'm just glad it's not an apparition or a shadow person or, stuff I'm actually afraid of. I'm not afraid of poltergeists. I don't know. Move shit around. Okay. Who gives a fuck? It's like poltergeists are like having a shitty roommate. They just keep borrowing your shit and not putting it back where you think it would be. Like, they're just not that scary. To me personally. If they scare you, that's fine. I'm not making fun of you. Everyone is scared by different things. So when I realized there was a poltergeist there, and it seemed friendly. It didn't seem shitty at all. And there was moments where it was more of a prankster than anything. Like, it would move my cleaning supplies around. I would spray down a mirror and set the bottle down and then go in to wipe it. And when I went to pick the bottle back up, it would be gone. And I would find it like upstairs. So, because the building that I cleaned was, it was a house, but it was medical offices. It was a historical building that had been converted. And the building itself was like Revolutionary War era, I believe. Maybe Civil War era. Damn. Now I don't remember. It was one of the wars, but it was like, it's a very old building. And so since it was a historical building, it had been turned into offices, but it was still just a house. Like, it was a very strange vibe. But so there was an upstairs to it, and that was where I saw most of the activity, I guess that you would say. Although I saw it all over the house. I mean, it wasn't a very big house. It wasn't like a southern plantation with like 17 rooms. It was like a 6-room house. It wasn't very big. And I used to communicate with it by, it would knock on the wall. And I have a broken phone still in my dresser drawer back home, just waiting for me to eventually try to get the information off of it, because the phone died. And I had a video on it of me talking to this poltergeist, and like I established in the video, it's 1 knock for yes, 2 knocks for no. And I just asked it questions, and it answered each one. And it was never, it's about a 5-minute long video of it accurately answering questions. I put a lot of space in between. I did things like, made sure that it wasn't an even interval, that it was just like a pipe knocking. And I had it knock on different walls and, come from different places. And I asked the same questions. I repeated the same questions and made sure I got the same answers, so that it wasn't just, a ambient noise. And it was intelligent responses. And the questions that I asked were mostly like, are you upstairs right now? Were you male or female? Do you remember, and if so, 1 knock for male, 2 knocks for female, blah, blah, blah. Things like that. And through doing that, I, in a way, became friends with it. And I had these very shitty supervisors. And the way this company worked was I would clean the buildings alone. I was by myself. And then a supervisor would show up after I had gone to check my work and sign off that the building had been cleaned. And so I knew the supervisor that checked this building did not really like me. Yes, and I'm petty. And I offhandedly one time while I was, talking to the poltergeist, which I would do as I was like cleaning around, I would talk to it. Talk to him, I should say. It answered correctly that it was male. I would talk to him while I was going about my business. I would ask it like how its day was. I'm doing it again. I would ask him how his day was. And, like, did he miss me? Stuff like that. And one time I said, if Joe, my supervisor's name was Joe, like if Joe comes to check the building and he's with someone, because often the supervisors would travel together to each location. And I was like, if he's with somebody and my name is Morticia. If they are talking about me and saying bad things about me, I want you to scare them because they need to not say awful things about me. And I was mostly joking. I mean, if my poltergeist wanted to, I wasn't going to say no, but I didn't want them. I didn't believe it would actually happen. And then a couple weeks later, my supervisor showed up while I was cleaning. And that had never happened before. Like, I had met him many times. Like, he would come and check... Oops, I hit my microphone, sorry. He would come and check one of my offices while I was still cleaning it. So I saw him a lot, but he never got to that one because he had his own rotation of things to do. But I never saw him at that one before. And he showed up, and I was like, what? I was like, why are you here? And he was like, I wanted to ask you something. I was like, okay. And he was like, have you ever, how do I put this? Do you believe that this place is haunted? And I was like, no? Because, what am I supposed to say to that? Like, I don't know. And I was like, no, I've never noticed anything, weird or anything. Why? And he told me this story about he was there, the one night. And he said it happened on a couple of occasions that he got hit with things. Like, he saw, I can't remember. Oh, it was a stapler. He saw a stapler lift up and hit, and it, throw itself at him. That happened, twice, I think. I don't know. It's been a while. Don't quote me. I mean, unless you guys, for some reason, know Joe, the guy who works in unnamed city. And I don't even know if he still works for that company anymore, but... That company, Peterson Construction. Yeah, you can't get anything out of me, Chris Hansen. Sorry, stupid. Anyway, he was like, yeah, it just started happening out of nowhere, and I was like, that's crazy. Yeah, no, I've never seen anything like that. And we talked a little bit more, and he left eventually, and I turned to my ghost, and I was like, oh my god, okay, he must have said some shit about me. Oh my god, did you scare him? And I was doing the knock for yes, knock for no, and it kept knocking yes, and I was like, did you really? Yes. It's so funny. So that is not a scary story. That was, I mean, honestly, I consider that poltergeist one of the best friends I've ever had. That poltergeist really stood up for me. Which is very kind of it. But yeah, eventually, Joe had someone else start checking that building. It freaked him out. Oh my god. That's so good. That's such a good story. I love that. Okay. I promised you some spooky stuff. So that was my lighthearted, fun story. Let's get into it's gonna get creepier from here. But still not fully creepy, because the next story has to do with sleep paralysis. So it's not actually a ghost. I mean, it was terrifying. Don't get me wrong. But it was definitely sleep paralysis. And if you don't know what sleep paralysis is, that's where you are awake but still dreaming, and you can't move, but it feels like you're awake, and you can't move your body. So I was obviously, one night I was sleeping, and I felt like I woke up fully because something had woken me up, and I couldn't at first tell what, and then I realized that something was touching my feet, and I couldn't move because like my initial instinct was to pull my feet back, obviously, from whatever is touching them, and I couldn't move my body. I was completely frozen, and my brain started saying, okay, I think this is sleep paralysis, so something scary might happen, and just calm down, you're okay. And I can't tell you guys how difficult it is to calm down in that situation, because you do feel like you're awake. There's really no difference to your perception. And I felt for all the world like someone was holding on to my feet. I could feel their individual fingers, and their hands were so cold. And it was at the foot of my bed, and the foot of my bed touched the wall. So obviously no one was down there, because there's no room for anybody there. And I felt the hands start to move. I felt them grip my ankles, and it felt like whoever it was pulling themselves up onto my bed, using my legs as like a pulley system. Like they felt like they were grabbing onto me really hard and pulling themselves up, and their hands kept creeping up farther and farther as they pulled themselves out from where I don't know, because again, there's no room there for a person to actually be there. But they got all the way up to my hips, and I could feel the rest of their body on my legs, and I felt like I couldn't look down, but I knew that the blanket only came up to about my belly button, and that if they got any farther, I was going to see their face. And I knew that was going to be terrifying. So I just kept thinking to myself, wake up, wake up, wake up, please, please, please wake up. And I just couldn't, because I was already awake. And I was so afraid to look down, but I couldn't have. I was frozen. But in the way that sleep paralysis is a lot like a dream, things happen that don't have any rhyme or reason, and it doesn't make very good stories because of that. There's no good beginning, middle, and end. There's no internal logic. It's a dream. I felt like I couldn't move my head, but as soon as their head came out from under the blanket, all of a sudden, instead of my ceiling, I could see the face. And it was your usual scary face. It had a wide, gaping maw, like sort of almost like the Scream Mask mouth. Honestly, a lot like a Scream Mask, because it didn't have eyes either. It just had these blank spaces, like someone had like punched a hole through their face twice. And it looked like it was screaming. And I was so afraid. I was afraid in this way that I felt like I would go mad because I couldn't possibly maintain all of the fear in my body. It was overwhelming. And I took in breath to scream. And then it was over. I woke up properly. I, turned the bedside light on, and I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I'm like, oh, Jesus. And like, I knew, even though I knew it was sleep paralysis and that thing wasn't real, I knew that, but I was still terrified. Because honestly, what if, with the things that I've seen, like, how do I know it wasn't just some weird demon that could, I don't know, freeze my body in place? I don't know. Maybe this thing's going to come back. And I was terrified of going back to sleep and that thing coming back because I didn't think I could handle it again. And my heart was racing and I was in a cold sweat. It was terrifying. I know it's sleep paralysis, not a real ghost story, but holy shit. It didn't feel like it at the time. I was so scared. Holy fuck. Just thinking about it, I've got chills. Like, I'm so afraid of sleep paralysis happening to me again. Luckily, it's only happened that one time. I've never had it again. But unfortunately, I've had definitely awake, because ghost stories. But you definitely know the difference. Once you wake up, you definitely know the difference. Like, sleep paralysis doesn't feel like a ghost encounter. And if you have had both, you can very much tell the difference. Sleep paralysis is entirely a different feeling. But I can see why, if people don't have any other ghost experience, why they think that they're sleep paralysis, or if they don't know what sleep paralysis is. But I can see why they think their sleep paralysis is demons, is ghosts, it feels so real. But once you're fully awake, it doesn't anymore. It doesn't feel quite as real. But I see why people have such a problem distinguishing between the two. Okay, next story. It has to do with those office buildings I was cleaning, but it was a different office building. And technically it was only the parking lot. But one night I was cleaning at this different medical office that I cleaned regularly, and it was my last one of the night. And so when I was done, it would be about 1 a.m., somewhere around there, because I got done at differing times. It depends on how much I needed to clean in the office. So basically, I was locking up, and I had parked my car right near the back door that I left out of, that I would lock after I left. And on either side one side was a playground, and the other side was woods. Not like super thick woods, but, kind of like a couple houses of empty lots worth of thick trees. But definitely civilization on the other side. So it was a little bit spooky, because it was, pitch black. It was silent. No one is using the playground at 1 a.m. or anything like that. No one's coming through the woods at 1 a.m. It felt like I was entirely alone when I would get off work there. And I wasn't thinking about much. I got in my car, and the dome light came on, obviously, when I first got in. And I put my key in the ignition and turned the car on and turned the lights on, and then went to put my hand down on the shifter, and I felt someone grab my hand. And I can say from experience, there's nothing quite as unsettling as someone putting their hand over yours in a car when you think you're alone. And again, my first thought, unfortunately, my first reaction was to freeze, which is that is not what you want. So I froze, and I didn't look over. And I tried to calm myself down as much as I could. And I didn't pull my hand away instantly or anything, and like this was probably only a few seconds, but it felt so much longer. I felt my heart rate increase. I felt a fear that I can't properly describe. If you've ever felt debilitating fear that freezes you on the spot, then you'll maybe agree with this. But it feels a lot like you go cold, and then your heart feels like it cramps, and your brain feels like it's suddenly full of static electricity, and you feel like your spine is trying to force its way out of your back, and your limbs are tensed to run. And finally, my body reacted. And instead of moving my hand for some reason, I looked over. And there was a man in my car with me. And again, at this point, I'm not thinking ghost. I'm thinking someone, I've either forgot to lock my doors or someone broke into my car. Because he looked real. He looked solid. He looked like blood was running through his veins. The only thing that was odd about him was his eyes were bigger than I would say is normal for a human. Have you ever seen, like, if somebody uses a big eye filter but they already have big eyes and it gives them this alien quality to their face? It's very unsettling. It was like that. Like, they weren't pie plates, you know, they weren't cartoonishly large, but there was something about them that was so unnaturally large that I instantly knew something was wrong with him. And they were, and almost, I shouldn't even say almost, they were a little bit, but they were a blue color that I don't believe a human has ever achieved that color. They were this luminous crystal blue. And they were glowing a little bit, like they gave off light, is the only way I can describe it. But otherwise, he looked, you know, it's strange. He actually looked a lot like Beck, the musician Beck in the 90s. And I don't mean like Beck was only relevant in the 90s. I mean like the way Beck looked in the 90s, like about that age, you know, young guy. He had like blondish, curlyish hair. He was wearing a blue plaid shirt, like a button-up, and khakis. Like, he was there. He was there. And I didn't know what to do, and he was just sort of looking at me. And I had no idea what to say. I'm not great in situations, social situations, at the best of times, but what do you say to the man who has broken into your car and is now touching your hand? Because he was still touching my hand. And he was very cold, but not unnaturally so, because it was quite cold out that day. It was, you know, February in Pennsylvania. It was cold. And so it didn't strike me as that he was preternaturally cold. He was just cold, which would make sense if he had just, you know, walked over to my car and gotten in, which is what I had assumed had happened. And I just stared at him, and eventually he said, "Where have you been?" And the crazy thing is that I didn't have an answer for him. And suddenly something about hearing his voice finally overrode my freeze response. And I started screaming and slapping at the door of my car, trying to get out, trying to find the handle to get out of the fucking car. And I didn't take my eyes off him. I also didn't stop screaming. I was screaming the whole time. And he looked angry when I started screaming. And he told me to stop. He kept saying, stop screaming, stop. And I finally got like the handle of my door open. And I popped the door open and he disappeared. He just vanished. And I don't mean like he was there 1 second, gone the next. He vanished in kind of a strange way. It was almost like watching TV static. He turned staticky and then it faded. It was one of the most intensely frightening things that has ever happened to me. And I've had a lot of scary shit happen to me. But that's like one of the worst things. You know, you watch horror movies and there's always the serial killer in the back seat, and you check your back seat obsessively for a while after watching that movie, assuming that there's someone back there. And I would often give myself the creeps driving home at night and thinking, what would I do? What would I do if I just looked up in the rearview mirror and there was someone in my back seat? What the fuck would I do? And you always think that, you know, you would do things a certain way. Everyone's different. Some people think they would, you know, interrogate the person, or they would yell at them forcefully, or they would scream, or what. But I'm here to tell you that until it happens, you don't know how you're going to react. Because I always thought I would, you know, immediately slam on the brakes and get out of the car and like all this stuff and then run. And I found out that I'm not fight or flight. I am freeze. And it is unhelpful. And it took me a long time to get over that fear. I was always afraid after that. Leaving that building, getting in my car. But I did keep checking. Every single time before I got in my car, I would open the driver's side door and I would peer in. I would look around. I even got a flashlight. I would check the back seat. I would check on everything because you're not getting me again. Fool me once. Pop into my car in the middle of the night once. And then after that, no. And I don't know what he meant by where have you been? I don't know. Maybe that was a physical manifestation of the poltergeist at the other office. I don't know. That also wouldn't make sense by him saying, where have you been? Because I cleaned that office regular and had been there that night. Also, he didn't really look like a Revolutionary or Civil War soldier. Or, honestly, anyone from that era, not just a soldier. So, I don't know. But a lot of the times, people will make that joke. You know the one? Where they're like, why is it all ghosts are dressed like they're from the Victorian era? Where's the mid-2000s Britney Spears fan ghosts? Why is no one like... I'm here to tell you, I saw a ghost wearing khakis and a button-up. And it was not any less frightening than if they were wearing a Civil War outfit. It is still a scary thing in your car and you do not know what to do. So yeah, if someone makes that joke again, be like, actually... Yeah, I saw a 90s Beck impersonator ghost, which is not the scariest thing until it happens to you in the middle of the night and they're in your car and you can't get away. Oh, fuck. Sorry. That one gave me the creeps. All right. Next story involves Gomez, everybody's favorite person, Gomez. Yay! So, Oh god, this one is creepy. Luckily, there's no preternaturally wide eyes in this one. There are feet. This is 2 feet stories. It's not intentional. I'm not a foot weirdo that you know of. Anyways, so I was in my room taking a nap, and the door was shut. And in our apartment, every door has... It's like they got the wrong door for the doorway size, which is probably likely. But each door has like inches of clearance underneath it. Like you can slide a whole fucking towel wadded up underneath it. You can almost slide a pillow underneath it. And so I was working 3rd shift at the time. I had moved on from the cleaning job at this point. I was working at a gas station 3rd shift. All that to say, while I was taking a nap, it was daylight. And Gomez and Scotty were out, and I was home alone. And something woke me up. And I think now that it was a noise, but I wasn't sure at the time. And I heard someone walking around in the living room, which is the room that connects to my door. And someone was walking around, and it sounded like they were wearing really heavy boots. And I thought that was strange, because when Gomez is in the house, he takes his shoes off, and he doesn't own heavy boots. And so I was like, that's not Gomez, but let's, probably is. But something told me not to call out. It was just some instinct. So I texted him. I said, hey, are you home? And he said, nope, still out with Scotty. And I was like, can you come home? Someone's in the living room. Not to frighten you, but there's someone in the living room. And he said, we're almost home. Just stay in the room. We'll be right there. Like, it was the most miraculous timing. But the few minutes that it took them to get home, and there was someone in the living room, felt like hours. And I don't know how they realized that I was awake, but they stopped moving. And then slowly started walking towards my door. And they were walking rather quietly, as though they were trying to mask their noise. And again, I thought someone had broken in. I wasn't like, this is a ghost. That's not what I was thinking, but I was too scared to call the police or 911. I didn't want them to hear me. I figured, I don't know. I didn't know what to do. And plus, Gomez and Scotty were almost home. They were going to get there before the police anyway. I didn't know what to do, but I wanted my mom. I was so afraid. And they got up to the door, and I could see in that huge gap under the door, I could see their boots. And they were thick black work boots. And I just knew they were standing there waiting for me to come out. And I watched their feet under the door. They had a shadow. I could see when they were still walking around. I could see the shadow moving around. I mean, this is a person. This is a person in my house. What the fuck do I do? And I waited. And he waited too. And I don't know how I know it was a he, other than the boots are really big. I mean, I've known some women with some big feet, but more than likely it was a man with how big the feet were. And I held my breath. And I was mind-numbingly scared. And then I heard the downstairs door open, which meant Gomez and Scotty were there. And I heard them charging up the stairs. And I heard them get to the door of our apartment. And they had to unlock the door. So how did this person get in? But as the door swung open, not my bedroom door, the door to the apartment, as that swung open, it's a very loud door, you can hear it. It needs WD-40, but as that swung open, the feet disappeared. Almost like smoke. It was just there, and then it was incorporeal. And they got to the bedroom door and opened it, and I was so hysterical. And I was trying to tell them it's a ghost, it's a ghost, it's a ghost. And they didn't hear me at first. You know, Gomez was like, where are they? Where are they? And finally, like, I managed to get it out. I was like, it's a ghost. It was just a ghost. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I started, like, apologizing, and they were like, no, don't apologize. You're fine. And again, they didn't think I was crazy, which is lovely of them. But also at this point, Gomez had his own ghostly interactions in our apartment. So he did believe me now about essentially being able to see ghosts. And so when I said it was just a ghost, he wasn't like, okay, crazy. He was like, okay, you're okay now. And it was terrifying. So now I know how I would react if someone broke into my house. And it is not at all productive. Oh my God. I have the worst panicked reactions to things. You always hope, you know? You always hope that you're going to be good at it, that you'll know what to do when the time comes, but no, you don't. Some people do. Some people have that within them. I do not. I have freeze up and become scared, and that's about it. Okay. Now we're going to get into the last story. This one is going to be hard to believe. I understand that going in. So if it makes you feel better, you can pretend I'm reading you a creepypasta that I found on the internet. But this happened to me and to a group of my friends. So, well, a group of my friends that I had in my very early 20s, like when I was 20, 21. I no longer am friends with them. But this is the story of how I bound a demon in a box. And yes, I know you all had the same reaction. Well, I mean, except for maybe a crazy couple of you. When I said that, you thought, oh, bullshit. And you're right, it is bullshit. Because I didn't do it. Someone else did. But it is still the story of how a demon ended up in a box. And I don't even, this is going to sound crazy, after all the shit that I said, I don't necessarily believe in demons. That ascribes to a religious ideal that I don't particularly believe in. I don't have a spiritual religious belief, and I know that probably sounds crazy, because I do obviously believe in ghosts, but I've seen ghosts, I haven't seen God, so I just generally believe in the things that I can see, and I don't pretend to know why or how any of these things are happening. And so until I see the proof, that's where I'm at on it. But the reason I say demon is because it looked like a stereotypical demon, and I think once we get into the story, you'll be like, oh yeah, okay, that I would call that a demon too. And it involves the same cemetery that Leo from my last one was buried in. But only in so much as that's where we had been, and probably where I picked this hitchhiker up at, let's say. So Me and 3 of my friends had gone up to the cemetery, and we were just doing our usual, sitting around the cemetery at night. And this was also while Leo was still around. But we had gone up there, and I didn't see Leo every time I went to the cemetery. I didn't even see him every day or anything. And I didn't even see Leo this night. We didn't see anything. And so we kind of wrote it off as this was kind of a failed trip, unfortunately. Nothing really happened, so let's go back into town. I mean, it was like 2 a.m., but we would stay up all night regularly. It was 2 a.m. when we got back into town. And we had gone back to my girlfriend's house because she lived with her mother, but her mother was never home. And she was a year older than me, so she was like 21, 22. It's not like, she was an abandoned child, but her mom was just kind of always out. And she would just leave for days at a time to go visit her out-of-state boyfriend and stuff. And so we went back to her house because that was the house we could all drink at and shit. And so we were just hanging out, and her and I got into an argument. And she was a bit crazy, if I'm honest. And so was I. I was a lot crazy. So we had gotten into an argument, and I lived, 10 blocks from her, something like that. So it was a ways, but it also wasn't like too far to walk. And I got mad at her, and I was like, I'm going home, and slammed out of the house and made it a little less than a block when I saw this thing in the shadows. And the funny part was it was in someone's backyard who had a literal white picket fence. So I saw this terrifying thing in this probably little old lady's white picket fence yard. He was among her begonias. But it was, again, the only way I can describe it is a demon. It was so tall, and it was very dark out. But in the moonlight, I could see red eyes because they were glowing a little bit, and horns at the top of its head. And it seemed to be the same color as the night around it. And again, I froze, as I always do in these situations. And then I heard this rumbling, growling kind of noise coming from it. And I turned and ran. I had no idea. I mean, I guess my fight or flight kicked in, and it was definitely flight, but what am I going to do, fight that thing? It was like 7 foot tall. And I ran back to my girlfriend's house. I would have to have gone past this thing to get to my house, and I wasn't going to run 9 blocks. And I was pounding on the door because they had locked it after I left. I was pounding on the door and screaming and looking behind me, but it wasn't behind me. And my girlfriend came and answered the door, and she was like, what? And she was like mad at me, She was like, you stormed out and now you're back and blah, blah. And I was like, shut up. So I told them what had happened. And everyone believed me because, again, they had all seen Leo in a way or heard him. They knew that things were not as they seem in the world. And so we didn't know what to do, and we didn't want to stay at the house because that thing was very close to the house. So we all ran outside and got in her car, and we went to the 24-hour diner. And we were the only ones there. By now it was probably 3 a.m. And we sat in the smoking section, which should tell you how old this story is. It's like almost 20 years old now. God. But we sat in the smoking section, which was a very small room off of the main restaurant itself. And the booths were in kind of a U shape. And we sat in the one we preferred. And when we sat down, the light above us went out, burned out. No big deal. Happens all the time, right? So we got up and moved to a different table that had the light still on because we were not sitting in the dark. We were all very creeped out. But then that light burned out too. And we noticed that the light where we were sitting was back on. And we realized something very scary was happening. Lights just don't do that. And so we tried it one more time because one of our friends was always the science it out kind of person. 1 or 2 times like that could be a coincidence. It's a faulty wire. But if we move back there and it turns back off, and then this one turns back on, we'll know for sure it's following us, this light turning off. And so that's what we did. We moved back to our original table, and the light went out, but not just the light. All of the lights in that section went out at once. And we were very scared, and we didn't know what to do. So we moved into the main part of the restaurant proper, and all the power went out. As we sat down in the main part of the restaurant, the power went out for everything. And the cook, who we were sort of friends with because we were there a lot at night, and she was the only nighttime cook that worked there. So we had gotten to know her. But it was still very much, we were regulars at the place she worked. She wasn't like our friend. We didn't go out and hang out with her. And she was much older than us at the time. The oldest of us was probably 23, and she was like mid-30s. But she came out from the kitchen with a flashlight, and she shone it over at us. And she screamed and dropped the flashlight and said, "What is that?" And we were all hysterical girls, so, we had had a very stressful night. So we all started screaming, and she said, out of the restaurant. Come on, out of the restaurant. Let's get out. And so we followed her outside, all holding each other and hugging each other and like moving as one. And we went out, and as soon as we stepped outside, the lights in the restaurant came back on. And she told us what she had seen. She said she had seen crouching behind me, when I was sitting in the booth, this thing with what looked like goat horns. And so we told her what we had been up to that night, and how we ended up at this restaurant at 3 a.m. And I'd let her know that she had seen the same thing I had seen. And so the first thing she did was ask me if anybody had a camera. And one of my friends, the skeptic one, she had a camera in her truck, and she had driven us over. And so she went and got it and gave it to the cook, and the cook took a couple pictures of me. And I mean, again, this was almost 20 years ago. You guys, I don't have the pictures anymore, or else I'd just show you. They weren't on my camera. I didn't even have a computer at the time, and that's the only way you could upload them. It's not like you could take a picture on your phone and have it at work at all. So no, I don't have those pictures anymore, but she took pictures, and you could see this black mass behind me. And in one of the pictures, you could see what looked like a hand, like a black smoke hand, sort of in front of my face, but like over where my mouth is. Like it was holding my mouth shut or something, but I mean, it wasn't. I didn't feel it. And so she said, "Go home and everyone stay together. Go back to your house." And she told us to do a circle of salt around where we were going to be sleeping. So we did, even though Again, I know it is so stupid to judge it, but I just thought it was hokum. You know, I know I saw a demon and I'm expecting you guys to believe me, but I remember thinking, what will salt do against a demon? And it turns out not a lot, because I kept being plagued by this thing. We got through the night okay. But things started getting very strange for me over the next week. I started sleepwalking again, and I hadn't sleptwalked since I was a child, like a young child. But I started sleepwalking again, and I would wake up at the same spot. Oh my God, the cat just scared me. I'm leaving that in so you guys hear how fucking nervous and scared I am telling this story. But the cat made a croaking noise and I almost shit my pants. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Holy shit, that scared me. Oh, Dora, you asshole. Jesus H. Oh, my heart's pounding. Okay, anyway. But I kept finding myself at the same spot whenever I would wake up from sleepwalking. I would be at my bedroom window, overlooking the backyard of my parents' house, which I can see from right here where I am right now. And I kept seeing that thing outside. It never ended up coming inside of any of our houses. It went inside the restaurant, so I don't know what kept it outside of our houses. But I remember seeing that thing bent over like a gargoyle in the backyard, staring up at me in the window. And it was almost like it had been making me sleepwalk and it had been trying to get me to come outside. But it was like it was too stupid to pilot my body down the stairs, around the house, and then out the door. And it could only think of summoning me through the window, but it couldn't get me through the window. It's hard to describe. But I started not sleeping well. Obviously, I think that anybody wouldn't sleep well in these circumstances. And eventually I asked one of my friends to take me down to the restaurant because the cook's name was Jen. I'll just give you that. I wanted to talk to Jen because it seemed like she knew what she was talking about. She told us to do a circle assault. I had to do something. And this was before I had sent Leo on to the afterlife. And I didn't see him during all of this. He was always afraid of ghosts and scary things, so he probably avoided it. But when I got there to talk to Jen about it, I told her what was happening. And she had asked where we had been, and I told her. And she said, you're going to stop going to that cemetery because something has attached itself to you and has come home with you, and now we got to deal with it. And spoiler alert, I never stopped going to that cemetery. You would think that I would because this was terrifying, but there is some perverse part of me that loves being scared. And all of this was the most interesting thing that had ever happened to me. Even if I was terrified. That's why I still like scary stories. It's why I still like ghost stories. It's why I read ghost stories before bed. To be spooked, to be scared. Because there's a part of me that likes it. But I talked to Jen. And she said that she needed a week because the phase of the moon was important. And it wouldn't be the correct phase for another week. But she needed a week. And she told us where to meet her and what day and at what time. And when the day arrived, I had had the most terrifying week up until this point, and I was very ready to have it over. It was no longer a novel idea to me. It was no longer fun. I woke up at one point and I felt a hand coming through the back of my hair and down my face. And then I fully woke up. And I was starting to believe that it could touch me while I was sleeping. If I was asleep, it could touch me through my dreams. That's what I started believing. I don't know if that was true or not. But I was terrified, and it was no longer fun. And I did stop going to the cemetery for a little while after this, until the thing had left me alone long enough that I truly felt safe and cocky again. And then I started going back. But anyway, where Jen had us meet her was on the bank of a river in the middle of the night. And there was a full moon, and it was a clear sky. And she made me bring everyone that had been there the night that this thing had attached itself to me. So me and 3 of my friends were there, and Jen was there. And she had us stand at the cardinal points of a compass. I was, in case you guys are wondering, I was fire, so I was south. And she had a wooden box and some ribbon and a bundle of sage. And inside the box was a mirror. And she had us repeat some words. I don't remember them at this point. Again, it was almost 20 years ago. But I know she had us chant. And she had us hold hands. And she said some stuff. And snapped the box closed. And I instantly felt lighter. I didn't even realize how heavy I had felt. As though something was crushing me. Because you can get used to almost anything. But I felt instantly lighter. And she handed me a little hand shovel, like a hand trowel, and had me dig a hole right there by the bank of the river. And we dug and dug and dug because it needed to be a certain number of feet down. We dug and we dug. And finally, it was down far enough that she thought it wouldn't be disturbed. And we buried the box and filled it back in. And I never saw that thing again. I will be honest, I do sometimes get very scared that someone will find that box and they'll open it and that thing will come back to me. But I think at this point it's more likely that it would attach to them. But I don't know what that thing was. I don't know what it could have been. And I understand that that story is incredibly hard to believe, and even I don't tell that story ever. Because I think it's insane. I think it's crazy. What do you mean? I bound a demon in a witch box? What are you talking about? That's insane. But it happened, and I never did see that thing again. So maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. Maybe it just got bored of me and left. I don't know. What I do know is I am so glad I have never seen anything like that ever again. That is the most horrifying thing I have seen with my own eyes, was that thing. And that's the end of my stories. I'm gonna go calm down a little bit, and then I will record the outro. So I'll see you guys 5 minutes from now when I'm feeling chipper again. Hey guys, I'm calmer now. I had to go, shiver and shake for a few minutes. Oh God. Jesus Christ. Anyways, if you liked this, let me know. If you would like me to continue the Morticia's Ghost Stories series, but, again, I'm starting to run out of my own stories. You guys can send me ghost stories and I will read them, if that's what you would like to do. Or if there's a creepypasta in particular you would like me to read, I will do that. I am a one-trick pony. Well, I guess there's 2 tricks. I do chat logs and ghost stuff. But yeah, I will read you whatever you like. If you like the semi, it's not even semi-annual. Yeah, if you like the semi-infrequent ghost story series, let me know. And I can also have some other people on to read, because I know Steele loves ghost stories and would be very, very into reading some ghost stories for the channel. So I can have other people read them if you don't like my voice. So, but like, comment, subscribe. Please, 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 please join my Patreon. I post the top 10 worst that I can't put on YouTube because they're too graphic over there for free. And you can financially support me. It would mean the absolute world to me. And you get stuff like your video suggestions or your requests for chat logs goes to the front of the pile. I will straight up cancel a recording and schedule a different one if you request that I do that one. I will even do the top 10 worst out of order. If that's what you want. I think that's the $5 and up tiers. But you get stuff early, like this will be posted hours before it's on YouTube there. Like usually it's a couple days in advance, but not always. Sometimes I film and I procrastinate and I film the day it's supposed to be up on YouTube. But generally it is in advance. But yeah, do that. Please join the Discord if you would like to. We got tons of stuff in there that will scar your eyeballs if you see it. Like, Safraz Khan's, tennis boys, nudes. We had an influx of people looking for that because someone posted about it on Reddit, but, so yeah, do that. Do all those things. I love you guys so much. I hope I didn't spook you out too much. Actually, I hope I did. I hope I made it hard for you to sleep tonight because you're super scared because it's going to be hard for me to sleep. I don't think about that story a lot because it gives me the fucking creeps. You heard me scream, right? Yeah, now I'm manic. Now I'm like scared and manic. Okay. Thanks to Hey Blinken for the intro and outro music. And thanks to Gloom and Malice for recording part 5 of Kalanji Woods, which is the top 10 worst that I can't put on YouTube. We have 5 parts of it now. We have over 6 hours of the worst thing you've ever heard in your life that they are recording for me because it literally gives me the worst mental health I've ever had in my life to read it. So if that sounds good to you, sign up for free for my Patreon and you can have 6 hours of your own mental breakdown. Okay. I love you guys so much. Bye.
I know where we're going, but it's anyone's guess. The party's just started, and I'm already a mess. Maybe it's karma, or maybe dumb luck. Either way, this is perfect, and I don't give a fuck. I'm just looking for fun, but it's getting too late. You're just playing a game, and I'm taking the bait. So just have a seat right over there. We're doing this again, so try not to be scared.